Hi, this is Gary again with another video for Perfect Golf's CourseForge package, and in this video I'm going to be showing you the little bit I know about animations, how to make them, how to bring them into Unity and how to use them. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start by showing you how I've set up a simple animation here in Cinema 4D. Okay, so basically what I've done is I've got this sphere here and it's just on a loop of going backwards and forwards and then up and down. And the way that I've done this, for if you want to know, if you're interested, is in the coordinates here. I've set them up so there's a keyframe that starts with that at those coordinates, and then I basically pulled my slider along and just dragged this over to here. So if I say I was to drag it a bit further and then hit another keyframe for that, which sets that up, and then dragged it back to the original place. Well, actually what I did is I just copied and pasted in the original coordinates, hit another keyframe, dragged it up, hit another keyframe, and then just copied those coordinates back at the end and hit another keyframe. So it just does this side to side and up and down motion. It's quite simple to set up, no hassle. Okay, and then what you do is you export this as an FBX, and now I'm going to save this as ball. Okay, and on the options, the only thing I did that was unticked was I ticked bake all frames, and then I just clicked OK. And if we go into Unity now, you can see that my ball has appeared in my models folder, which is where I saved it. Okay, so what do we use animations for? Well, I guess you've noticed if you've been playing the game that more and more animations are coming into the courses, trains and boats and wildlife and and lots of different things, and they do add a little bit to the game. They make it a bit more realistic if you get them right, and they're good things. So obviously I don't know everything about animation, certainly don't know everything about animation, but I know enough to sort of fake a little bit, get it in here and get it working. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you two different ways to animate your object in Unity. So the first one, basically what we're going to do is we're going to drag this ball in here, okay, and we're going to hit play. What I'm going to do actually before we do that is I'm just going to show you a little trick which you probably already know, but if you look in the game tab and if you look in the scene tab, you can see that the two views are different. So if I want to be viewing in the game tab what I see here in the scene tab, I just go down here in my hierarchy on the left, select the main camera, hit game object and hit align with view, and that now gives me pretty much the same view in the game as it does in my scene. So if I press play here and show you the animation, you can see that absolutely nothing happens. Okay, and the reason for that is because when you bring a new object into Unity, an animated object, it sets it up with a default of generic under the rig settings, which are here. So I've clicked on the ball, okay, I've clicked on the rig, and it's brought it in with an animation type of generic. And generic, there are three animation types. Well, obviously there's four, but that's not really an animation type. There's no animation. There's legacy, which is which allows, I think what happened is that at some point Unity brought in this new generic and humanoid system, and it's completely different to the legacy, the original system, and so they put this legacy in so that you could still use the old animations that use the original system. So humanoid obviously is going to be a more complex approach for the humanoid models, character models and things like that. So but the two that I'm going to look at are the generic and the legacy. So if you set your animation type to legacy and hit apply, now if we go back into the game, you should find, hopefully when it sorts itself out, that your ball will go from side to side and then up and down. Okay, and then it will stop. Right, and the reason for that is that in the animations we've set the wrap mode to default, which is just once, and you can actually make it once, you can make it loop, or you can make it ping pong. So if we set it to loop here, so if I set it to loop and hit play, then clearly what's going to happen is, you guessed it, it's just going to go on a loop. So it's going to go up and down, side to side, up and down, side to side, up and down, side to side. Now ping pong, I'm not sure you'll see any difference here, but ping pong, let's just have a look and see if it does make a difference. I don't think it will. Up and down, sorry, side to side, up and down, side to side, yeah. Because what it does is it goes forwards and then backwards. So for instance, if I'd have set my animation up just to go one way like that, so if I just literally, the ball only went and just went across to there, if I set it up on a ping pong wrap mode, it will go there and then it will reverse back and then it will go there and it will reverse back. So in essence, it's the same as the animation that I'd set up where it went there and came back, but it's just doing it via Unity instead. So we'll keep it on at loop. But here's the other thing that's interesting with this. So in Cinema 4D, I've set this up to go side to side and up and down. Okay. Now I could have set it up to go side to side, up and down, spin it round, do a circle, do whatever, and have a huge long sequence of animations. And then I could have exported them into Unity, and Unity allows me to split these animations into clips. So I can split the one long import into a lot of different clips. So for instance here, if I bring this down to 90 frames, which is where my side to side stops, okay, and hit apply, right, and then click on an add here, just here, I've added myself a second clip. So my first clip, which is called main, which I'll change to side, if I play that now, that first clip's just doing the first 90 frames or 3 seconds on a loop. Okay, and now if I go into my main 0 and call that up, for instance, and drag this start time from the 90th frame onwards, 90, okay, that one's now going to play. Oops, where's that gone? There you go. That's now just going to play my up and down settings on a loop, or my up and down animation on a loop. So if I hit apply now, okay, and we go back into my animator, not my animator, sorry, my game, it's just going to play the side to side animation on a loop. So because that's the clip that it's defaulted to. So if I hit stop here, if I click on this ball and I change, oh, I didn't apply that, I changed, never mind. We'll call that up and down, main 0, we'll call that up and down. So if I change my side to main 0, which is the up and down one, now when I hit play, it's just going to play the up and down. Okay, so if you've got something that you want to, and clearly as well there, I haven't set that up to loop. So if we go back into the ball, go into my main, let's just call that up for benefit of clarity. Change that wrap mode to loop, hit apply. Okay, now hit play. It may work, I may have updated it, yeah. So there you go. That's now going to play the bouncing motion, up and down motion on a loop. So if you've got something that is repetitive and does the same thing over and over again, then you can use the legacy shaders. You can use the legacy animations or the legacy rig and just make it do that. But what about if I want to make my ball go up and down twice and then side to side once? What if I want to put in more commands and make it do them at intervals that I choose? Well, what I would do then is I would change my rig settings from legacy to generic and hit apply. Now if I go from legacy to generic and hit play in the game, it's going to do absolutely nothing. Okay, won't move. And you'll see as well, if I select here on this, you don't have the animation component anymore that gave you the options to pick which motion you wanted or which clip you wanted. You now have something called an animator component, which is a completely different thing. So the way that you set these up is this animator is looking for a controller, and that controller is how you set up your movement. So to do that, what you do is, it's best to be in the folder here that you want to save it in, but you hit create on the project, okay, and you hit animator controller, and we'll call it ball, okay, and then you select your ball and you find your ball controller and you drag it in. You can see I've practiced this already. Okay, now you've got your ball controller, and this is where you now direct that ball and tell it what animations to do. And the way that you do that is you double click on your controller, and if you look, I've actually put the one in that I've been working on previously. So what I'll do is, let's select this ball again, and I assume it's defaulted to ball 1. Okay, and now we'll double click on that, and you can see it's an empty controller. So I'm not sure 100% how all this works, I've got to be honest. I assume in this state is like a trigger, so you're telling it that this works when something happens. So for instance, I could probably change that to, I don't know, a button press or something. I don't know, I'm just guessing there. But the entry and the exit, clearly, it's, you start at the entry, you put in your animations, you go to the exit. So the way that you do this is you would drag in your, it still hasn't saved to up, weirdly enough. I drag in my main, okay, which is my up and down. I drag in another main, which is up and down here, and I'll drag in a side. So what this is going to do is right click, make transition, right click, make transition, right click, don't make transition, leave it. So what this is going to do now, when I hit play, is it's going to go from this state here, it's going to play my up and down once, play my up and down again, and play my side to side once, and then stop. So let's watch it in the game. So there's up and down once, up and down twice, side to side, and then it's going to stop. Okay, so that is how you can add specific animations into your object. If I were to put a transition in here to the exit, then it's just going to loop that animation, so it will just continually do it. So it'll be up and down and side to side, as you can see, and then up and down again. Okay, so now here's the question, right? I've got this here. What if I want to move it? What if I want to, what if instead of it, I want it to still do the up and down and side to side motion, but I want it to be doing it down the hole, right? I don't know why you do that, I don't know, but I want it to go from here down to here, and then I want it to loop around and come back, let's say, right? How do I do that? Because if I go into here, if I were to click on an animation for this now, so you hit Control and 6, it will bring up your animation window. I've got all these keyframes into this sphere already that are doing the up and down and side to side motions. So if I start fiddling about with positions, it's going to completely mess up that animation there. So the way you do it is you basically create a parent or an empty. Now, the way that I like to do it, and it's probably not the right way to do it, it's probably, there is probably is a shortcut to doing this, but I'll click on the ball, I right click, and then I click create empty. Okay, and that puts an empty object under the ball, so it puts it like almost as a child of the ball, but then I need to drag that out and drop the ball in it, so it makes the game object the parent of the ball. So if I call this game object ball move, okay, and hit enter. Now if I press Control and 6 while I've selected that, it brings up the animation panel and it tells me, it asks me to create a new animation file for this. So if I hit create here, I'm in models and I'm going to call this ball move, okay, and hit save. And now I've got an option to start recording some data for what I want to do with this ball. So let's just move it a touch, brings up some keyframes, okay, so there's your first two. There's your starting point, okay? And let's drag it along now. So I'll drag this along. I think I make that, yeah, make that bigger there. So by putting in these are frames. I think it's set at samples 60, so it's doing 60 frames a second, and that's over 3,000 seconds. Let's make it over 6,000 seconds. So that should be, by my calculations, 100 seconds, I think. Where's it gone? All right, let's make it 3,000 and tab out. And I can just, in fact, I think you don't even need to do that. I think if you just mouse scroll, it gives you your seconds anyway and lets you move along. But it's doing it at 60 frames a second. So let's say that after 5 seconds, I want my ball to be here. So basically, I'm just going to drag it and put it there. Okay. And then after 10 seconds, I want my ball to be, let's say there. And after 15 seconds, I want it to be back to where it began. So what I'll do is I'll just copy that by hitting Control and C, go into 15 seconds, hitting Control and V and pasting that in. So now the simple animation, if I press play, is the ball's going to go to there, and then it's going to loop round to there, and then it's going to come back to where it started. Okay, so that I'm just moving that parent, animating that parent in the game space. So if we look at that in game, let's drag that out of the way so you can't see it. If you look at that in game, what you're actually getting now is your ball's going to be doing its up and down and left and right movement, but it's going to be doing it whilst it's moving. So we're moving the parent, but the ball is still doing its own individual thing, which, you know, if you want a beach ball flowing away or something, great, excellent. So that's how that bit works. So you can add that in there. The other thing you can do, if you look down on this animations window, you've got a curves option here, and the curves just basically relate to your X, Y, and Z axis. So, for instance, if I take this one here and I drag it up, it's going to move the ball about. But there's, it's not really that I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you if I need to. I think it might be Shift and click, or Control and click. Can't remember how to do it. Oh no, this is it. Sorry. If you right click in here, if I go to free smooth, it's going to give me some handles that I can use. So I can change the way that the ball moves in terms of its position. So I could give it more of a loop, or, you know, I could drag it out, or if I change, say, this one to a flat, that will give it much more of a smooth transition through the path that it's going on. Or I think there's another one where for instance, if I make that flat and then just turn that up to 90 degrees, you can see in here you've got this drop. So if we have a look and see how that affects the ball, it's probably going to look really terrible, but you can see that by moving those handles and choosing your different options, it changes things around. So there, it's moving a lot quicker all of a sudden, and at some point coming up here, it's literally just gonna do something, I'm not sure what. Yeah, just sat there for a while and then loop back. So you can move those handles around, move those points around, and you can play about and change the way the ball moves, and that's important to know that for when you're doing things in, like, for instance, bird flight, and you want it to look natural, because, you know, if your bird's flapping around, you know, you don't want it to look like it's going on some sort of shallow arc, when really it would be making a sharper turn. And you can use these curves here to do that. And the dope sheet, obviously, with that, you can move your bits and pieces forward and backwards, and, you know, do whatever you need to do with it. So it's quite useful. Now, one of the things that it is really useful for, but unfortunately at the moment I don't quite have the knowledge to pull it off, is I purchased a pack of animals from the Unity asset store. I got them, I think, at a discount. They're about $125 now for this pack, so it's quite expensive. But in there, you've got some really great animals. It's called Animals Full Pack if you want to search the Unity store for it. But you've got some really excellent animals. So, like for instance, you've got this seagull model, which is going to be perfect for this course. Now, literally, I could what I could do with it is I could select seagull here. I could make the rig a legacy rig, okay, and apply. And then on my seagull, I could make my animation fly. Find the correct parameter for that, which won't work at the moment because I think all of these are set to generic. I need to put them back to legacy. So hit apply on legacy. Okay, so let's go back into that now. So if we look at that, I've got a fly, the animation's on fly, and if I hit play, my seagull's just going to loop a flight animation. And no, it's not. This is frustrating because all this worked previously. It might be because I've got the wrong one. Let's just have another look. Hang on. If I go into my animation here, let's find the fly that relates to that one was sparrow, you see. So it won't work. I don't want fly one, I just want fly. There it is. So if I click on that, if I press play, with a bit of luck, my seagull will be flapping. And there you go. So my seagull's flapping. Then this is where using the legacy rig works really well. So if all I want to do is make my seagull fly around the place, then can just click on set up my legacy rig, set it up to flap, get my seagull, click create empty, drag the empty up above, and then drag my seagull into it so it's a child of that empty. And then I can just select the empty, hit Control and F6, create an animator for it, SG1, let's call it SG1. Okay, and then I can just drag my seagull up, so let's say that it's flying up here somewhere out on the coast. Let's put it out. Just going to really roughly do this, but let's just say it's out here somewhere, and then after quite a few seconds, it's flying in over here, and then it's going to do, and we're going to copy that. Now we're going to go back to here and here, and just set the rotation, so the rotation's just set slightly, and then we're going to go back to here, over to here, and we're going to copy this rotation out, just the rotation part. So these are the hoops you've got to sort of jump through a little bit. I'm going to just copy that there, paste it in there. Okay, and then we're going to hit here, and we're going to rotate it a little bit more, and then it's going to go for a few more seconds, and then it's going to fly down this way, and we'll just watch that and hopefully see that it works. So we'll set it back to its original position, and we'll double click on it in the hierarchy so we can get close to it, and then we'll put the camera view behind it. Now this may go ridiculously fast, so I do warn you. And we'll set our main camera here, game object, align with view. So now we're looking at the seagull, or we should be looking at the seagull. Where's the seagull gone? Anyway, should be there. Hit play in game. And there you go, your seagull's flying off. And then it's going to hopefully do a reasonably graceful turn. Could look ugly. There you go. Yeah, it doesn't look great, but you play about with that. It's done a turn, it's flying off a bit more, and you could fly it all the way over to the other side and then get it out of view, and then it will just keep looping this animation. So it'll fight, eventually it'll get to the end, disappear, and start back over here again somewhere, where it will fly over the top of this point. Anyway, it's probably gone. But you get the point. So you can see what it's doing. It's just looping an animation where it's flying around. And that's where the legacy shaders are excellent. You could use the other shader to use some of the other clips of the seagull to make it land somewhere, hop about a bit, have a look around. There goes the seagull again. Hop about a bit, have a look around, take off, fly around, come back, sit down. But the problem with it is that I've found, and the reason I haven't done this is I've tried extensively to do it, but it's really difficult. You have to get your object controller animation, which it would take. You'd have to get that animation synced perfectly with your parent movement animation, because if you think about it, if my seagull starts off on a post, for instance, or coming in, landing on a post and flies off, if I'm 5 frames too early the first time with it landing, the animations might not look too bad. They might be slightly out and then it takes off. But by the time that's looped around 10 times, I'm going to be 50 frames out with my animation. So the bird might be doing the flapping motion while it's actually sat on the fence, and then by the time it goes to take off and move again, it's still doing the motion as if it was sitting down, so it's completely unrealistic. Now, I think there are scripts, I've Googled it and had a little look, and there are some scripts that tell you the number of frames in your animator controller animation, which would control the seagull's actions, for instance. But I don't know how they work. I'm not up to scratch with that. So if anyone does know anything about scripting in Unity and can find a way of telling me how many frames I have in my animator controller animation, which would then allow me to match that up exactly to the number of frames in my parent movement animation, that would be fantastic, because then we could really start to have much more realistic looking objects. So for instance, you could, looking forward, I don't know, you could make a train roll into a station, have the doors open, have someone walk out of it off somewhere, and then the train go off and loop it round and come back again. Just, I don't know, that's maybe a bit over the top, but even if you could just make it so you could have a seagull fly in, land on something, look about a bit, fly off again, and loop that round time and time again, that's going to be great, because you don't know how long if you make that, say, happen every 15 minutes, you don't know at what point in time you're going to get to the hole where the seagull's sitting on the fence. Some rounds you might never see it, and another round it might be 20 rounds time you actually see the seagull land. Imagine how that would feel. Wow, I've never seen that before in the game. It's almost like it's happening randomly. So yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic if someone can work out how to do that. But I think that's the end of this video. I hope you got something from it. I hope that it wasn't too complicated. I'm not saying by any means that this is the right way to do things. I'm just saying that this is the way that I've done things that works in a way that it works for me. So anyway, that's it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and hopefully speak to you next time. Well, I won't speak to you. I'll be speaking at you, but you get the point. Okay, thanks very much, and bye for now.